Okay, I believe they're all set, so trying to see if I can trying to make sure they all have the starting uh point. Okay, I left off in Daniel here, and I think I should get to the end here of this one, or the end of the editing of the text. And what I'm doing is I'm revealing the first writer's formats that are hidden in the Bible. They're easier to find now that I'm showing you them. It's the editing of the words that has to have a certain skill set. Like me, I'm probably 40 years I've been reading the Bible easily. So in the last 30 years, I've had it on the computer. So with a Bible searching program that really is an extreme advantage over everybody else. In the knowledge that our Creator has given me, that also helps a whole lot. Okay, yeah, I'm thinking, how come I'm using the word kingdom there? But that's okay. That's they're in Babylon. I get rid of the word cast. I'm using the word cast as to cast out, so I need thrown here. Push them in. Instead of let's be truthful about what's going on, they didn't just throw them in, they pushed them in. Forgot to set something up here. In Daniel, I read in time, so it's a neck piece instead of a neck lace. This way it stays together like what they had in Egypt. Um, uh, he wasn't a king at this time. This is his son, Nebuchadnezzar's son here, so he has to be a prince at this time. Daniel's being thrown into the lions too. And I had to correct the years uh, for this to happen truthfully, because I've done a lot of the editing I did in Daniel has to relate to the age of Nebuchadnezzar, because it's like this is at the end of 40 years here. So how young was he when he sent them down to um, uh, capture uh, Judah? So the thing here is he's going to end up reaching probably close to 75 to 80 years old is by the timeline that I got set up. And so um, I know people will study this later, and I'm trying to target him pretty much to 75 max, not the 80 like I just said, but it's all part of figuring out what the truth is. Okay, I put those verses in this time, and this is Daniel returning, and this was the last piece of Daniel right here. And so when I understood the story above, this played into needing to be here, because now you can see the text is starting with Ezra, and I had to make a few adjustments that Cyrus is going to be the king a little later. Daenerys is going to die out, but Daenerys is the one that sent them down from Babylon, so it was in the second year, and not Persia yet. Persia will be when Cyrus becomes king. So, and that'll happen when they're returning, and Daniel writes in their language, Babylonian language, to the king. So, um, so needed to be the dates and times corrected to make sure the story is, I'm moving this text when I do this. I don't, guess I forgot where I'm moving it, but people can search it and find. Uh, Daniel was their governor at this time, not this guy. This guy is going to end up being a priest, and I think it's going to be designated by Haggai. So, this guy's okay. This guy's going to be the priest, not this guy. That's what I got. That's right. This has been a couple months. So, yeah, that's right. This guy is going to be, he's mentioned later in text that I had a choice to use two, and I just thought the story reads more truer with this guy's name, even though I've shortened it down. See anything real big here? How you doing? See you've texted. Good evening to you. What I'm doing is I'm revealing the first writer's formats hidden in the Hebrew text, and this is the style they wrote in. The italic words are the words that I've added, and the upright words are the words that are actually in the text itself. In the 3 verse, they would write this as the statement, and this becomes a sentence that becomes a statement. And then this becomes like a small paragraph. And when 2 of them are together, they make a larger paragraph. And then I double spaced them, and then you can see that the subject is changing. And I've spent quite a few years doing this. But this is my last go around because I'm getting too old, and I wanted to make sure that gave it my best effort before I start turning senile. So the thing here is um, in the description, I have a link of what I did with Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John and compiled them as one story. And they're going to be at the end of this text. And then we're going to have all the books. I've got all the books that I'm using, 24 of them, to be put in order all the way through, so nobody's confused and has to go running around for what there's there. And right now I'm recording for history of my last editing before I'm thinking this is going to be posted, and then it's going to take me a couple years, maybe longer, to figure out how I put it into print, because it's going to take a few $1,000,000, and that I don't have. But this will be for everybody free off my website. And if you go to my website, I think it's at the bottom, yeah, right here. It'll be there within probably 2 weeks. I'm going to give it 2 weeks because I got to read Jesus's teaching again, which I'm doing right now. I just started reading it for the last time, but there are things that I still have to check for accuracy. And again, I've had to change this king because he's the king at this time. And and they began to build, or I think they began to build, rebuilt the altars and things like this. They're starting to get ready to, or they are in the process of rebuilding now that Ezra text is here. This text means I'm not going to use it anymore, even though it has a format. You can see I had 2 lines missing here to make it a 4-verse to 4-verse. They literally wrote 4-verse, and then depending on who was editing, they would write when the story completely changes. It would go from a 4-verse to a 3-verse to a 4-verse, and there's many examples that I'm going to make sure people see that because I noted off to the side here. So I hope you're having a good evening. Servant to governor is the better word. He's because the word governor is here. They sent the letter to him and saying, I am your governor, not your servant. Like I said, I'm fine tuning these. I have concordance that I was using when I was doing the text that I could click on, like the word capture, and see how the multiple different uses that they would use for capture. And then I was trying to select the best one at that time. And now it's kind of like I've got to smooth the text out and be as accurate as possible now that it's actually in order. And it did take me like 3 times to read it and go over. Yes, in the description, I've got quite a few videos that you might want to watch, like where heaven is located from earth, how Jesus defines what is Holy Spirit. In that video, I get into great depth over the word spirit and how Strong's defines it. Then there's like tells you what actually a tomb is and what tombs are. Um, a lot of things like that. Oh yeah, the other good one is Jesus didn't walk on water. In there you'll find that I mentioned that the waves. There's 2 stories put in when I put them together. The stories were saying that there was white caps on this lake that was preventing the boat from going any farther, and having a hard time. And then Jesus came to them, but he wasn't walking on the water because they're white caps. But there is a word that the disciples said, or maybe they said, he is a ghost. Well, what do ghosts do? Well, Jesus glided over the water. So a lot of things have changed when I do this, when I've done this. Uh, Actually, our Creator has made me see him 8 times, so I don't have a belief. I know our Creator exists. This text I'm getting rid of here. And then, yeah, when I'm putting corrections here, it's all about reading, rereading, and making sure that these numbers are actually truthful. So, uh, and actually, this text here is David's reply. Yeah, and David in this text, actually, they say it's an Aramaic, but it's not. That they just lied. David would have been able to write in the Babylonian language, and that's what's unique about it, is that's why they left the text that way when they put it in. That it was important enough that when the king, the new king Cyrus, is in there, that he's going to say who, and he's going to be able to say, well, he actually wrote in our language, so who is this guy? And then they would have dug up in the um, records and found out what David did and how our Creator made himself known in the days of Nebuchadnezzar, like he did in Egypt. So yeah, I've got like think I've got up maybe close to more than 800 videos now of recording this for history of every verse that I used and what I threw out. So, like I said, that I was going to mention also in the description that have a link that you can find a zip file that has an earlier edit. I haven't finished it. I mentioned that it still needs editing. That if you wanted to try to read Jesus in order, and it showed the verses. Let me see if I've got that on my screen right now. Sorry about that. And I'm going to put maps up. These are my notes over here. Uh, I've got quite a few ideas over all these years how I'm going to put it into print, leave room for everybody to be able to write, put their notes down. Patrol to watch over our land, and you're not. This in green will be when Jill speaks. The all bold capitalized letters are when our Creator's words or possession of His. So just like when He's promising about Jesus as a Savior, I have colored, and I like to say purple, but this color in Microsoft reads violet. But then the other text will be red, or meaning Jesus. So here, this is going to be a reply that he's talking about another one in his vision. So I wanted to make sure that this text was him was saying it and was recognized that way. I don't want people to make up things. This is uh, this is so detailed. The more you read it, the more you learn, the more you're going to realize that the words I'm using are um, actually tied throughout the whole text. So, like a lot of times I've mentioned already in these videos, that I'm also trying to make it for a 12th grader to read, or a 12-year-old to read. And then all the same word means the same thing throughout the text. So, example here, this is a mention of our Creator's light. He shows himself as a light, and he was like a circle of light, and this is how he appeared to many of the prophets in the deep darkness, and also above the mercy seat. And then you have to realize that you have to go back to Moses when he was building the tent or meeting, that it was made out of hides, goat, and goat skin hides, and they're both white. So it was the granite white was his house was built out of. Uh, If you go to my website, you'll be interested. I show you the text that you need to change one word in Exodus 26, verse 26, from the word bars or bar to arches, and then the wood or the planks that are listed below make a hip roof. So if you've ever seen the picture of the tent that they've got on the internet, that's kind of got like a double covering, because those numbers are there, but when you put the hip roof on, then it's correct. But I've counted every board and tried to make sure that that's entered into the text. Came down, returned. I know this could have been used, but there was 3 words, and I needed 2 words to make this verse how it's set up, and then I had the least amount of words in between 2 major words to come up with a single verses in either the 3-verse or 4-verse. Now here's a 4-verse where these two make a sentence, and then this makes another small paragraph, and then you see two of them together make a large paragraph. So, uh, so this is kind of backing up in time. That's why I had to use uh, Terrace here, and I had to add it. I think I left it blank before, but the object is this is kind of like a recap what happened when the King Arta, yeah, from Egypt, wanted to know what was going on, why they're up there building. It would have been news that people are now rebuilding that. The kings around the other neighbor areas would have heard it from the travelers going by. So I forgot you're on Twitch. One of those links, I'm thinking Twitch does, because I'm using Restream, and I haven't been familiar with enough to know if it actually puts the description in there. Because I know for like Rumble, it won't take it yet. I thought it did something for Twitch, but you'd have to go to YouTube to find the links I was giving you there. Just search my name for my YouTube channel. I'm using the word fish in here, so I'm reordering the sentences around, or the verses around. It seems that I might have had 5 verses here, and I needed to make it 4. That happens when I read so much, and then I would say it was probably after 10 hours that I was studying the text that these things happen. Yeah, this was too many words here as major words. That's usually where I note them. I try not to use some word like that uh, unless it's being used as a major word for the format. In fact, if you wanted to try to figure out or see the format, just go to BibleHub.com, grab Daniel, and then put it in a word processor, remove their numbers, all the comments, and just keep trying to find the shortest verses. And you won't be successful. You'll find them long. You'll say, and just keep going. But it'll take you about a half hour after you do probably about 10 verses that you're going to start seeing them appear. And then you're going to say, well, these other words are not needed. They're just being added by um, our enemy. They've been in control of the text for more than, saying 2,400 years. I'm thinking that they would have wrote in this style for Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I see signs of that, but they messed that text up so much that I just had to go through that and explain every truthful word that I could find. And I just put up like 160 videos of the shortening them down of the long form that I did, and I went over to the major editing of the text. But there's still probably 80 videos that are 4 hours long. Okay, now this is going to be the end before Jesus comes. So this was the Psalms that I got to go over that I put down here, and I meshed them into the text. But in this one, that's going to be used as my final editing. People are going to have to look or copy like a certain verse and then look it up, and it should pop up here in Psalms. And I'm sure somebody will want to say, well, I'm going to help this guy out and put all those things in there in the correct place. and then people can use that person's work to and see how well he did, because I got too many things in the iron or the fire pot right now. I think that's all easy enough to understand. Had to add the word obey here. It looks like I might have left out the word and had to add it into the text. Devising, making. Like I said, I'm trying to like take that to make it words for a 12-year-old to read the text without having to go to a secular dictionary. Uh, Elders to leaders, that's just my call. Because elders would have been when he got killed and they went fled to Egypt, because it's a time that there was prophecies for them to flee to Egypt from Israel. So these are from Israel, but a lot of them just stayed into Judah, and then a lot of them didn't make it. So I'm not sure how many elders would have went the long journey to throw. Oh yeah, throw the staff on that. It's true. Picture the pot. Yeah, it's pretty easy to understand, I guess. This is this is just smoothing out the wording when I'm reading it. I needed uh the more I started putting the text together, the faster I started reading it. One time, and all of a sudden these things weren't like the word how was registering, and it wasn't registering in my head to actually what was happening with what the subject was. So a this group down, and here's where it's at. And again, it's I want to make sure that it's all refers to him, to his light, that he was appearing to them. So it wasn't that they just bowing with reverence, not to its light, or not just empty space. Uh, yeah, I don't. Dimmer I'm using as starting to go blind, like Isaac would use that. Yeah, when Jacob came in and he couldn't recognize him until he touched him, and then reddened, you know, with grief, because it's grief, so it's got to be reddened, kind of sadness and rubbing your eyes and things like that. And old, and I decided with the word aged. This would have been put with Nathan. The text that's here, I figured out that a lot of these Psalms could not been just by David. David, you're going to see, because he's talking about um, fighting and battling people and how he is delivered. Where Nathan would be able to be the only one that would be able to say this, because he gave the prophecy about Jesus to him. So that was, I realized how well that was written and understood that it was. It's like he's writing after he's told David, and after and later in life that he wrote that, um, is to be placed in probably the book Nathan as a prophet. But The enemy has burned everything that was truthfully written by the good guys. And that's what happens when people get in power. They don't care and don't believe what's written. I changed to greatness, and I felt I was close enough without making it a yellow blue text word. Same thing here. Wonders or deeds by our Creator. Because this one is about Moab and Ammon. When you read it, so this has to be Joshua's words, but they had it as Psalms 9. But when you clean it up, um, down here, where is it? From their evilness, they were killed off, and stuff like that. Yeah, and the memory of them was to die off. That means that they come in and kill them all, men, women, and children, because actually the text reveals that they were having sex with animals and their own children and with whoever. It was pretty bad back then. That's why our Creator just said, kill them all. And that's how we killed. That was on the east side of the Jordan River and even on the west side of the Jordan River. But the story people only understand is about Amalek, where they killed them all. They killed them all off for the same reason. I didn't use this one, even though I thought I could. It just doesn't make sense when I tried to place it. I really tried to use everything that I'd done, but there's just, when I'm putting them all together, it just didn't happen that way. Spoke to told. They're around us, not about us, but around us. Uh, like I said, I've gotten more uh, confident of saying that it's time that I put every word in that I know and not having to say any other excuses other than I'm doing it better than what the text is that I ended up with. I had to add the word people. Tree is these detestable acts. Actually, mankind sits and meditates to have sex with a so-called female goddess, and this is the word harlotry. And if you search the word forehead, you'll find that harlotry in your forehead verse. And I've said, okay, I've got to make sure that's separated from adultery and then prostitutes, which I called whores. And then I think that stays to the truer to the text than a prostitute. The Hebrews didn't have the 60,000 words that we use today in our language, commonly speak all the time. I think somebody did a study and it was close to only 40,000 at that time. So where we have like 10 different descriptions for rain, they only had a few. I have to weigh and see, this is what I'm saying that I changed. I have to use this as, this is our Creator, but it's also talking about Jesus. So when they read the word, that it's, they, they are not to change or make up their own. See here, they aren't supposed to make up who the Holy One is. This bread lets you know it's Jesus. I don't need people after I'm dead to be falsely teaching. I'm trying to make sure that they stick to this text, because 70 years after my life, it's still my copyrights. So, but it's after that many years, because I truly believe that I could put maybe my guess only is 55% that people are still going to be on the earth 1,000 years from today. But if I put let's say 2,000, I'd say there's probably only a 10% chance, which it's the end of man on earth is coming, but it's not coming tomorrow. And this text is supposed to last as I've done it for the rest of those who are going to remain true to our Creator. Not let the enemy in on us or take over this text either. Seeing they get rid of a few words, I started actually going through this because some of these are actually, I did need 3 words in the verses. Yeah, that's right. A couple of the Psalms are different, and that's because it's going to be the writing style of that writer. So I'm saying there probably was a fourth, but it didn't appear a lot. It only appeared in the Psalms. So I don't understand why I need 3 words sometimes in uh, these dogs. I'm going to point them out who they are. Mankind assembled means gathering. It's easy, I put that verse in. I think that works pretty good here. Filling in and still can read it. Go on to the next uh, verse. Without pause, so we reduced down to one word, no. Psalms were done so long ago. They must have been done probably 3 years ago. And so it's been a while since I've edited them. That's why now that I'm combining them all, there's a lot of my extra editing in them. 26. I found something can't be used. Can't use it anywhere. Changed to house because of where I placed this psalm at. Lift is raise up my hands. Um, I wanted lift to be used differently. I think it was like they lifted up the one stretcher type of thing, or they lift up the rocks out of the Jordan River when our Creator commanded them to each tribe to pick up a rock and put that in his meeting room uh, somewhere. I would say it would be on the opposite wall of where the lampstand is at. Go down is to descend. So I was connecting words together to try to say I'm still using the text that was there in the original text that I started with. And that was the New American Standard, 1997. It's from the net, yeah. Remove is a better word than pull. Means the intent of the word pull is remove. Surprised this video is gone this long. Deliver to redeem. Now this means our Creator's redeeming us from the abyss. Deliver, I'm using it in the battles. So you have to get rid of that. Make sure that everybody in the future searches the word deliver. All the verses with delivered will be delivered from their enemy, earthly enemy. kingdom that's coming against him. And fight or sharpened sword, yeah, that's close. Bring to petition. Petition means to ask. Prayed means that you're talking to our Creator. And prayer is the act of how you're doing it, whether you're kneeling, standing up with your arms stretched out, or hands together. See, I believe that this was the king that wrote this, but I still couldn't put it in with that king. But it just wasn't, I guess it wasn't needed later. A lot of this stuff will probably be forgotten later in time because the text will be hopefully trusted by those that really truly want to enter into heaven. Prophecy of me being the helper states that they will believe what I've done. You know, rams to reward, I couldn't do anything, but it is talking about, a reward. Verse here. Laughing stock to a joke, you can see that's easy enough. Strange God, that means I have to get rid of that because that means that there would be another God, and we know that the title God is for meaning how Hebrews related with pagan gods, and they would use the title God back and forth. This is meaning definitely mankind becoming a god. Banner I changed to flag. Uh, Start maybe the highest one, highest male. I want to make sure that Jesus is known as the highest male, not a mighty one. I've been over this word enough. Sought to wanted, same thing. Need a many, and I needed that because I needed a second major word here. House needed to be tent because of where I placed this. And this was the scribe for Jeremiah while he was in prison. Only these words could have been said by him. There is no other place anywhere who could say those words or say these words. Needed a second word in there, and I chose mankind. I just highlighted that I added it because if I put it in red, you wouldn't see the lettering. Another, I used this piece because they're two separate pieces. When you read them, they don't connect together. This was a 3-verse, this was a 4-verse. Beginning with the first. You see now? You sounding song, words sung, that sound sounding. And I wanted to have it singing while they're doing this, not sound sounding from the lyre and harp. No, singing brothers to friends, yes, and neighbors to fill that in later when I figured out how to best have this text be read. Getting rid of the goddess name and putting in Ra because Ra is the sun god and he is the main god, and all the other gods um, are to him. Psalms, we still read the Bible. We'll have smoke comes out of our Creator's nose and fire out of his mouth in 2 of the Psalms. And that was kind of like the sun god. You should have mentioned that as well. Restore, I had to put teach. It's completely different, so that's why that's in gray text. Thus, I needed the third word. I didn't know didn't do it for 3 years, and then that's what happens. Move that down to here, it reads better. Went to descended. Could put it anywhere. Couldn't put it. I know I'm going through this, but I'm thinking everybody will get through it. Yeah, just needed that word there. And this is the last one here. So that will finish this video up and all the work that I've done. That's it, folks. Anyways, now comes the real good. Finally get to combine Jesus's text with or teaching with the Hebrew, so we have one great long. Have a good evening.